we're going to cover semicolons, colons, and commas. So let's begin by looking at the sentence that I have on screen, and what we can see is right here we have a semicolon, which I put in red just so it stands out a little better. Now, I'll start with a general rule. When a comma is the correct piece of punctuation to use, but we incorrectly use a semicolon instead, the result is a sentence fragment.
Huh?
I say when a comma is the correct piece of punctuation to use, but we incorrectly use a semicolon, the result is a sentence fragment.
Are you trying to give me the double talk?
No, I most certainly am not trying to give anyone the double talk. All right, let me try and explain this a little more slowly and carefully. We have a sentence, and the correct piece of punctuation to go in that sentence is a comma. But we make a mistake, and we incorrectly use a semicolon. And because of that, we now have a sentence fragment. All right, well, I guess he understands now. Good. So he's with me. Everyone is with me now. And we're ready to do some revisions on some sentences, right?
Certainly.
Well, I'm so glad he's on board. All right, we'll start off by reading the sentence. As a result, athletes competing in those sports will not usually receive a full scholarship, leaving the students and their families responsible for the remaining balance of tuition, books, well, that's a cousin of mine. I think he misheard me when I said that books are great learning material. All right, to finish the sentence, meals, well, I think it's obvious he hasn't eaten in about a week. Probably a graduate student. See what you have to look forward to? All right, and finishing out the sentence finally, and housing.
Say, you could be a big help to me. Where do you live? Well, it's not much of a place, but it's home. Meow!
Well, I had no idea the on-campus housing was so run down. Anyway, to continue. What we want to do is, I always like to give you a formula, a method for figuring out if the punctuation in your sentences is correct. And that's what I'm about to do here. So what you need to do is look for any sentence where you've used a semicolon. And then here's what you do. Look at everything that comes before the semicolon. Then look at everything that comes after the semicolon. And ask yourself, do I have complete sentences on both sides of that semicolon? If you do, then the semicolon is correct. If not, it should have been another form of punctuation, probably a comma. So let's see what we have. We have, as a result, athletes competing in those sports will not usually receive a scholarship. Well, that's a complete sentence. You could walk up to someone and say that, and it would make sense. However, you cannot walk up to someone and say, leaving the students and their families responsible for the remaining balance of tuition, books, meals, and housing. Good, no more visitors. So what that tells us is we have a complete sentence, an independent clause before the semicolon, and we have an incomplete sentence, a dependent clause, a fragment after the semicolon. So using this semicolon here has caused this to be a sentence fragment, which, as we know, can drag down the grades our essays receive. That tells us we need to do this. Change this semicolon to a comma. And that is correct, because what we're left with is a comma that joins the two different clause types, independent with dependent. And joining two different clause types, well, that's one of the correct ways that we use commas. Now let's look at another way that semicolons can cause sentence fragments. And it has to do with the phrase such as, which students use often in their papers. So let's look at this first sentence here, and I'll read it. Jerry has many favorite foods, such as turkey.
Can we have turkey? Sure! Oh, turkey and anything you want.
Apparently a very violent bird, the turkey. Continuing with the sentence, eggs. Oh!
Where you going to a Halloween party?
Halloween party. Continuing with the sentence, and you know, I'm almost afraid to read this next one. and coconut cream pie.
Why don't I keep my big mouth shut? Thanks for being with us.
All right, never mind goodbye. We're not quite done yet. We're just getting started with this sentence. All right, so here we have this such as, and we have the semicolon in red. Well, again, we'll perform our test where we look at everything before the semicolon, everything after the semicolon, and if we have complete sentences on both sides of the semicolon, then we have used the semicolon correctly. If not, it should have been some other form of punctuation. So, looking at everything before the semicolon, Jerry has many favorite foods such as. Well, that's not a complete sentence. You could not walk up to someone and say that and have that make sense. Then we have turkey, eggs, and coconut cream pie. All right, no unwanted visitors that time. Okay, so that too is an incomplete sentence. So we know then that we've used this semicolon incorrectly, so we're going to take it out. Now, what we want to use is a comma. Now, let's say we had put the semicolon here. Well, it would be the same thing, wouldn't it? We would have Jerry has many favorite foods. Now, that's a complete sentence. But on this side, such as turkey, eggs, and coconut cream pie, that's an incomplete sentence. So we don't want that. That would be a sentence fragment, such as turkey, eggs, and coconut cream pie. What we want is a comma right after the word foods, so that what we have is Jerry has many favorite foods. That is a complete sentence, an independent clause. And then after the comma, such as turkey, eggs, and coconut cream pie. That's a dependent clause. So once again, we're seeing where when we use commas to join two different clause types, independent and dependent, that's one of the correct ways that we use commas. So really, we have to be careful between the use of semicolons and commas. We don't want to cause sentence fragments. Okay, let's look at this next sentence where I have the semicolon once again highlighted in red. And here's the rule for a colon. Not a semicolon, but a colon. We always use a colon before a list, even if the list contains only one item. So, performing our test, I am studying for my favorite class. Complete sentence. English, by itself, one word, is not a complete sentence. And now we know that this semicolon caused this sentence fragment. Now, we're going to change this from a semicolon to a colon. And that's what I mean by use a colon before a list. Even if the list contains only one item. The only item here is English, so I am studying for my favorite class, colon, English. And another way to think of a colon, another way to think of it that's useful, is a colon can substitute for the words, and here it is, or and here they are. And that works here. I am studying for my favorite class. And here it is, English. And I said it could substitute for the words, and here it is, or, and here they are. So let's go back to this sentence. What if we didn't want to use this such as? We could use a colon to replace it. We could simply do this with a colon. Jerry has many favorite foods. And here they are, turkey, eggs, and coconut cream pie. And so what follows the colon doesn't have to be a complete sentence. This is a dependent clause. But what comes before the colon has to be a complete sentence. So those are two rules we'll keep in mind for when we want to use a colon. One, we always use it before a list, even if the list contains only one item, and we need to have a complete sentence before the colon. For example, this would be wrong. Jerry has many favorite foods such as. Well, that's not a complete sentence. That's a fragment. So we couldn't do that. We would have to just have a complete sentence before that colon. So, hopefully now we know quite a bit more about semicolons, colons, and commas. I hope everybody found this useful. Thank you.